Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody tuning in on Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube. We're excited today to spend the next hour talking about everything you want to know about the cool technology that was announced last week, Microsoft Viva. I'm so excited today to have Omar and Martina with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop it in. If you're on Twitter, pop it in Twitter. Make sure you tag Omar, Martina, and myself with the hashtag MSFTViva. If you're on LinkedIn, pop in your questions as well. We're going to take all that in. So quickly, let's do some quick intros here. So Martina, why don't you say hi to everybody, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Martina Grom. I'm a Microsoft 365 MVP, regional director, and co-founder of At Work. I'm based in Vienna, Austria. So it's dark outside because it's the evening here in Europe.
There you go. Thank you, Martina. Omar, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hi, everybody. My name is Omar Shahine, and I lead the program management team for OneDrive and SharePoint, as well as lists and Viva connections and Viva topics at Microsoft.
Awesome. And I'm Dux Raymond Sy. I serve as Chief Brand Officer here at AvePoint, similar to Martina. I'm a Microsoft Regional Director and MVP. And I'm so excited when finally Microsoft Viva was announced last week. So let's quickly jump right into it. So Omar, since you're with Microsoft and you're deeply involved, at least with parts of Viva, why don't you tell everybody what Microsoft Viva is all about?
Happy to do that. It is a very exciting time, and I'm going to see if I can also present a slide while I'm talking so that I have a bit of a background while I'm describing this. I don't know if that's on screen yet, but gosh, last week was really, really exciting. You know, launching a product at any company, I think, is just like the best experience. And then it's nerve-wracking because like we're going to deliver this out in the world, and we hope customers will love it. But I got to work on Viva Connections very, very deeply over the past 12 months. I think Jared Spataro talked about how parts of Viva were really born in the middle of the pandemic last year. We got a lot of really great opportunity to work with customers and better understand their needs. But Viva is a brand new product offering. It is part of something we call Microsoft EXP, which is sort of a new platform. And it's made up of 4 components today. And so I'll walk through those in a bit more detail. But really the goal with Microsoft Viva is about empowering people and teams to be their best. It's very aligned to Microsoft's mission. And so it's a great way to sort of help our customers and our company fulfill what we're here to do. And I think one of the unique things about Viva, it's really about how organizations take our platform and tailor it and build solutions for their people, for the people that work in those organizations, that are part of those organizations. So it's about human connection. It's about fostering growth and well-being and enabling peak business performance. It's very different than sort of the space I've spent a lot of time in, which is building productivity tools within Microsoft. Also very exciting. This is really about taking it to the next level for people and companies. And Viva is made up of 4 components, and I'll talk about those in a bit more detail. The first is connections. And you can think of connections as a number of things, but if you're familiar with SharePoint and you use SharePoint and you have a communication site or a home site in your company, well, that's like the base foundation for what we are building the connections experience around. Connections is a new experience inside Microsoft Teams. It is a branded, targeted, personalized experience, and you'll have new capabilities such as dashboard modules. It's kind of the newest component of what we're adding to our products is this notion of a dashboard, which is to think about it as small widgets and modules that you can create and target at different people in your organization. And there's a huge opportunity out there for companies and organizations to create those dashboards that also connects to the other 3 components of Viva as well. So that's kind of why I like talking about connections first. The next is around insights. And so I know Martina has a lot of experience working in this space, but this notion that we have a lot of rich analytics around how organizations within companies work together, how individuals work, employee well-being, that information is surfaced so that leaders and managers can make informed decisions about their people. The next is learning. Many people in corporations, organizations have learning requirements and learning opportunities for growth, and this provides a platform to deliver that learning inside of teams. And the other module being topics. If you have been paying attention to something we call Project Cortex over the last 2 years, topics is a big part of that, and we actually held on to our Cortex, final launch until we could be part of this Viva launch. Cortex is actually 2 products. The first, Microsoft Syntax, that we shipped late last year, and this product here, which is really about knowledge and about how companies can identify, organize, crowdsource, refine knowledge and experts within an organization and surface that across the breadth of applications that we build. So whether that's Microsoft Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, Yammer, we want topics to be a critical part of all of that. So that's sort of the broad overview. Hopefully that, kind of helped explain it in my terms. You can obviously watch the video and launch materials from last week. It goes into much more, detail and breadth about this, but that's sort of the quick product person overview.
Well, thank you for that succinct and brief overview, Omar. So Martina, I have to ask you, so you've seen this, just like myself, we've tuned into all the announcements, we've read up on everything. Why do you think organizations would need something like this? What's the case for Viva?
And this is one of the interesting part. I heard a lot from the community and other people is, oh, it's another app, and why would I need that? And on the other side, what I learned in the last year is that people are so disconnected right now. So in the beginning, it was like, hey, we can all work from home and it's a good thing to be at home and so on. But now we are facing also some problems around that we say, okay, how can I onboard new people? How can I include new teams? How can I train them? How can I bring them excitement about my company? How can they learn about our organizational culture because they don't know us? They're probably just picking up their devices or not even that. And on the other side, when I talk with customers, I see a lot of requirements around employee experience apps. And I'm very long in the market that I know that every HR person needs the one application which does everything, managing the employee, doing training, do everything around that. And this is a real requirement because you see, if you're hiring people, you have to do background checks, interviews, trainings, you have to onboard them and so on. And I think Microsoft Viva gives us the possibility to have an application which can integrate also third-party solutions into one single app. I do not expect it as the one-stop shop because it's so many workflows you have to do, but it's a good beginning. One of my customers is looking for an application where he says, I have so many remote workers, I have blue-collar workers, they are disconnected from the company and so on, and I need a lightweight app to be connected and get them onboarded into our organization.
Martina, you hit on a couple of key things, and certainly I would love to add more color into it. So first and foremost, right, in the last 12 months, because of the pandemic, this feeling of being disconnected is certainly real. A lot of people are frankly struggling with it, right? I was watching the video last week from Satya. He was like, one day I would wake up, I'm not even sure if I slept at work or I'm late for work, right? Because work and home is all the same. And then if you look at the audience, when we talk about employees, there's really 2 distinct audiences for this in the organization. One is a lot of our new colleagues. I mean, I can speak for us. where in the last 3 months alone, we've hired over 100 people around the world. Now, kudos to our HR and people team for getting them onboarded, my new colleagues, but they haven't been to our offices yet. And where's our office today? Our office is the internet. Our office is Microsoft 365. We use Teams, we use SharePoint. But at the same time, a lot of our new colleagues may not be familiar with all these different systems and technology. And I can clearly see where Viva comes in. For example, like Connections, where it's that true one-stop shop that brings in relevant conversation and information for our new colleagues. Viva Learning. I mean, these days, learning is critical. And again, there's different places where we can learn between external resources like LinkedIn Learning or Skillsoft or Pluralsight, and then internal learning as well. For example, I know customers that deploy the Learning Path module in Microsoft 365. So there's that too, right? So imagine for new employees having a more streamlined experience, and certainly I can see where Viva can offer that. And then at the same time, for our existing colleagues, with insights, again, a lot of it is really taking advantage of existing technologies like My Analytics and Headspace is there, and aggregating it into this centralized area, which is in Teams, where all of us use. And then the last point I want to make around employee experience, I think it's definitely here to stay, regardless if you're working remote or when the world comes back in this new hybrid workplace. As a result of the last 12 months, work has drastically changed. And now employee experience, the health of our colleagues and how we interact with technology and information is very, very critical. So long story short, I think this is a move towards the right investment in the right direction. Yeah. Now, go ahead, Omar.
Oh, I love how you captured, both of you, the importance of onboarding. And, a lot of organizations out there are sort of mission-driven, purpose-driven companies. And when people join, especially in a pandemic, you want them to have a place to go and learn about their company culture, learn about their leaders, and have also modern tools and capabilities that people are used to in their personal lives in order to consume content and information. And so, one of the big and important components we have is a feed. And we've been working quite hard to make sure the feed can take information from, Yammer communities or SharePoint sites or Teams, and allow the voice of the company, people in roles whose job it is to be ambassadors for the voice of the company, to have a way to reach them, and not do it, via email, which they might, some workers might be overwhelmed by or have too much of. And so that's really important. And I'd say there's like a diverse type of onboarding that occurs. There's knowledge workers, there's first-line workers, and first-line workers tend to be mobile first and on the go, on factory floors, have limited time. So having a simple way to sort of launch an app experience and get to that information is very critical. And so I think you both kind of covered that really well. And I think that's part of what makes this very exciting.
And also to add to that, I was really excited when I saw first the integration of tools like Headspace or employee well-being apps, because I think also it's critical. It's not around, we are not talking about work all day and all time. We also need to go into spaces like well-being and personal well-being, and how not to go run into burnout or get exhausted and so on. And I think you all know the feeling, like literally talking to a screen all day is exhausting.
Yes.
And we are probably, those tools will help us to stay connected and also human in one way.
Absolutely. And I want to hit on what Omar brought up. So at least for us, right, during the pandemic, certainly as a company, we're 1,500 people around the world. We use all the wonderful technologies, and we intentionally increase the engagement. And thanks to Yammer, we're able to do that. Instead of quarterly town halls, now we're doing monthly town halls, for example, with Yammer. Leadership engages with our colleagues on Yammer, but it's more than Yammer. We've seen more Teams activity, for example. And the fact that Connections can bring all of this together in a more streamlined way, in a more personalized way, will definitely drive that engagement further.
Yep.
Now, we talked about onboarding. We talked about well-being, especially understanding through insights and using headspace, for example. What are some of the other use cases? I know Martina talked about first-line workers or first-line colleagues or colleagues that are out in the field. What are some examples for first-line workers that on how they can take advantage of Viva? Omar, do you have any examples, or Martina?
Sure. There's definitely tasks and apps are very important to first-line workers. And so we have a number of ways in which companies can build on our platform or integrate the third-party, SaaS or PaaS providers that they use into the Connections app. So things like payroll, reporting time off, vacation, shift schedules, learning information, the handy apps that you might have a hard time discovering or finding, or even resources you might need to get access to. The idea is that you can create and organize that information in one place, but do it based on role and location too, so that, if your job is in a retail store in one region of the world, you have a different experience than somebody perhaps who works in a factory creating products for that retail store, or a marketing individual whose job it is to, market and create marketing programs. So each individual has a very specific set of tasks and applications that are relevant to their job. And you don't want one experience for everybody. That gets to be overwhelming and unhelpful. So that's just an example. And then think about the different communities. Retail store employees might have a community they use to share tips and tricks or new programs that need to be distributed, versus different roles in different parts of the company. So even having different tiles for the respective communities is another capability that we think of as being important.
Awesome. Again, for friends and colleagues that just joined, welcome. We're on LinkedIn and Twitter streaming right now. If you have questions around Microsoft Viva, we're grateful to have Omar join us, Martina's with us. So make sure you pop it in Twitter or LinkedIn with your questions. Okay, so technical integration. So based on our conversation, based on what we've seen, really Viva is, sure, there's new technologies in it, but it's really a culmination of a lot of existing technologies. So let's walk through each of these pieces and let's kind of break down what technologies are part of it and how it's integrated and how it's being surfaced as well. So first, let's talk about connection. So connections will surface in Teams, and certainly it surfaces content from Yammer and SharePoint. Does it have integration with Graph as well, Omar?
Yeah, so connections will show up in Teams as whatever name you want to give it. So for a lot of companies, it might be the name of their portal. Companies have today established, ways in which they brand and talk about that one place on the intranet that they want people to go to start their day or find information. So we think that strategy works well for web experiences, for application experiences that live inside of products like Teams. You'd name it something like it. In our case at Microsoft, we might call it the Microsoft app. And you launch that application by tapping on it. It could be pinned for you in the app bar. So companies will have the ability to pin, that app as one of the apps that are sitting there in the bottom next to, meetings or chat. And then that application will have 3 sections. One section is your company news. So think about it as Yammer announcements, SharePoint news, Teams announcements, stream content that companies are promoting to you as an employee based on your role and targeting to you. That, of course, all these things are going to end up with Graph capabilities, but I'll just talk about the modules. Then there's the dashboard. The dashboard is a set of applications. They can be Teams applications. They can be SPFX-based applications. They can be URLs to web pages. They can be images with URLs to web pages. So the goal is to make it really simple to curate a set of tiles that take you to experiences that help you do your job, or build a complete experience inside of Teams so that you can file your time off, right from within the app without going anywhere else. And then there's a resources tab. If you're familiar with SharePoint, you think about global navigation. and the experience you program for your company that has, who we are, leadership team, a travel portal, all those sorts of things that get programmed on an intranet will also have a corresponding set of, links and resources within Teams. So that's the Connections app. And then for the other experiences, you have Insights, which is really based on workplace analytics and the capabilities that exist in M365. Learning is a Teams application today. It's already an existing Teams application that you can program. It will include capabilities from LinkedIn Learning. And then Topics, which is really about the Microsoft Graph search being the key horizontal capabilities that help discover knowledge. And it can be extended using graph capabilities and SPFX as well, so that the pages themselves that you tap on can be programmed and customized and curated by an organization with knowledge managers or individuals who are specifically responsible for identifying knowledge. And of course, we have AI capabilities that help, sort of help organize your information for you as well.
Awesome. So when you talked about Connections, so that being that one-stop shop, does that mean for organizations using SharePoint today as their intranet, as their portal, does that mean that gets subsumed, or are there still going to be two places? How would all that play out in an ideal scenario?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. If you're an organization that has a SharePoint intranet today, you've done most of the work already to take advantage of Connections, because the Connections app really builds on home sites as a capability. But web pages and portals don't necessarily lend themselves very well to native mobile experiences. And so, when you're using the New York Times app on your iPhone, you're not browsing the New York Times website. They have a very curated, responsive, tailored experience for the phone that is, I think, enjoyable and delightful for people to use, with notifications and a feed and those types of things. So a lot of the work we're doing is actually to create a really delightful mobile experience with the capabilities of a home site, if that makes sense.
Got it. That's great. And from a cost perspective, are these going to be rolled into existing Microsoft 365 licensing, or is it additional? How would costing work?
Well, it's different for the different modules. For example, Microsoft Syntex is being offered as an add-on SKU or package for M365. Topics will follow a similar model. I'm actually not certain about Learning and Insights today. I believe is also separated, and Martina perhaps knows about this more than I do, since she consults with customers about it. Connections will be aligned to how you get a home site and the experiences you have today. So companies will be able to take advantage of Connections if they're already using SharePoint. And if they're not using SharePoint, we want to work with them to help them build the Connections experience as quickly as possible. And so that's something that's offered as part of Microsoft's E1 and E3.
Perfect. Now, talking about Insights, Martina, can you share what the building blocks of Insights are? And certainly, the headspace capabilities is somewhat new, although I know last year there was announcements around headspace already. What are some of the key components in Insights, and how would that be surfaced?
So Insights is also something which is already present here. So if you open up your Teams client, you can integrate Insights as an app, and you can see what Microsoft learned from your behavior within a tenant already. So I just added it to my Teams client, and I got recommendations. Have you followed up on that? Have you responded to this email? And so on. So this is one part of Insights. The other part of Insights comes from Workplace Analytics. And Workplace Analytics gives you, from a management perspective or from a broader statistical perspective, insights into the well-being and what is your team doing, and learning about your team and things like that, that you see what works or what doesn't work. And also some people are already familiar with My Analytics, where they see how is their personal well-being and their productivity in there, and you can learn around that topics a lot if you look at that. And I'm a heavy user of that kind of insight scenario, so I'm also using Cortana.help and so on, and I like it when she reminds me in the morning that I have to follow up on certain information. And it's like, yeah, you're right, it fell off my table and I have to do that today. And it's like a personal assistant. And with the Insights application, which you can add to your Teams client, it's kind of the same. So I can follow up, I do not forget things, and I get some information around that. From a licensing perspective, Dux, I don't know. I think it will come with Workplace Analytics, but I'm not Microsoft, so I don't know is it integrated or not, but part of that is already there.
Awesome. All right, so we got a great question from Leslie here. What if you do not use Yammer? What if you just use Teams? Do you need to suddenly start managing Yammer as well? Or is this like Teams and SharePoint? Can you pick and choose what you want for connections? Omar?
That's a great question. You do not have to start using something that you're not already using if you want to start with connections, with the exception of Connections is built on top of SharePoint content management system and Teams application ecosystem as sort of its foundation. But if you're using Yammer, then Connections is going to surface and highlight Yammer content, because there are a lot of organizations who have first-line workers and knowledge workers where they're successfully using Yammer as a way to drive, communities of practice, communities of interest, leadership engagement. And so we would be very, bullish on the opportunity to use Yammer successfully to generate, and reinforce company culture. But a lot of companies have also just started with Teams and are using Teams successfully for some of the same things. And so it's an and story. Like, part of the excitement for me of Connections is having a single place that brings all these things together. So if you're part of a group that uses Teams and you get an announcement there, or you're part of a group that uses Yammer and you get an announcement there, or you have a SharePoint news site that is where information is shared, it all comes together in one place. So you don't have to go hunting for this information in multiple locations. So I think of it as an and I think organizations can decide over time how they want to augment and increase their adoption of our specific product verticals.
Awesome. Another questions we have, so I'm just sharing my screen, so as we talk about this, we can kind of look at Connections here. So there you go, people can visualize it. Next question: how can I integrate for example, if we have a cafeteria menu in my personal cafeteria account balance that are non-Microsoft data sources, and I would need it in multiple languages? Is that doable? Is it just about building an app and surfacing it in Connections?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So part of the reason we started with some of the capabilities in SharePoint is we have multilingual capabilities, we have audience targeting capabilities, we have a content management system that is very flexible and enables us to do some of these things. And we have a development platform that lets you take content, services, experiences outside of M365 and incorporate them inside by building applications and graph connectors. And so the answer is yes. Imagine a company like Microsoft that has cafeterias around the world in multiple different countries speaking different languages. You want to make sure that when you launch that application, you see the cafeteria that's relevant to you and not a cafeteria in another country in a different language. So yes, you will be able to have an application that is translated in different languages, that pulls in data from different third-party providers and third-party sources. You can also have multiple different applications. So like, the North America region might have a cafeteria app, and Asia might have another cafeteria app that's separate. So we recognize that this is complex sort of integration challenge, and we want to be as flexible as possible. Not all those capabilities will be there on day one, but we will add and continue to augment capabilities over time.
I mean, just how you're describing it, Omar. So I pulled up the blog post. I think this is from Seth here, where certainly the mobile experience, as you described earlier, where it could be tailored. You have the dashboard to feed resources, which is great. So it's very app-like. But again, if we pull it up on Teams or on the web browser, notice how it's very rich, right? It's not just the traditional news announcements from SharePoint, which is important, but then we have feeds, for example, from Yammer, or even here we're seeing tasks are popping up. Your expenses are due, right? It looks like there's a Headspace app here. So it's this rich experience beyond content, beyond interaction, and it brings in app extensibility as well.
That's exactly right.
And also what I like around the announcement is that it's possible to integrate other third-party solutions like ServiceNow or Workday or anything else you already have in your organization. So you are not starting from scratch with a new app and another tool set. You can integrate that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, our goal is that organizations can get this out to their employees very quickly by leveraging all the things they already do. And of course, we're going to work with a lot of the ISVs out there to make sure they're already building Teams apps, extending those Teams applications to have this sort of widget capability that you're seeing. And we think that will help people get this deployed and driving success quickly.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Martina.
One question, Omar, is there will be a mobile app, so it's integrated in Teams right now, but there will be a separate mobile app as well, correct?
We haven't announced anything right now beyond just the Teams experience. The reason being, as many people already know, due to the pandemic, Teams has just achieved such incredible scale and adoption on mobile, desktop, and web. We think this is the best way companies can deliver an experience quickly that has broad reach. I think over time, what we'll learn is people would like other approaches to sort of getting their company branded experience out there. And so, we haven't made decisions one way or the other, but we're just very focused right now on delivering this product inside of Teams, and we'll learn and continue to take feedback on how to evolve it.
Yeah.
And I have another question for Omar. Sorry,
go ahead.
I read a lot around the community comments around Microsoft Viva, and one of the big questions was, is Viva only for large companies? Is it only for organizations with thousands of employees, or is it also a good fit for smaller companies, so like we are?
I think it's a good fit for anybody that has a need, that sort of, as we sort of started with earlier in the show. And so there's no like target company size for Viva connections to be successful. It's up to you to decide if it's got value that you think can help you achieve your organizational objectives. Then we would be more than happy for every company to use it. And we think it should be a simple experience. It doesn't require a lot of product development resources to create. So I would hope that we go and achieve success with perhaps much smaller companies today than might think of using SharePoint communication sites to sort of communicate exclusively. This provides that and more, which I think is a really nice way to scale all the way down to the smallest companies.
So we got a question here around Viva topics. So you did a quick intro Viva topic. Certainly it taps into existing technologies between Cortex and Syntex. So looking at this, so I pulled up this webpage. What are some of the common use cases people can quickly take advantage of with topics?
Well, there are companies out there that have really rich experience around knowledge and have invested a lot in curating information, and sometimes that information being critical to how business run operations, critical to how businesses share. And so for those organizations, this really brings knowledge to the end users in a way that previously might have been more difficult to achieve. So it'll be integrated in products like Word and Outlook and Teams, so that when you're typing or you see content that is a topic, it'll be highlighted. And just like the people card is integrated across Microsoft Viva, you'll be able to hover on a word and get this topic card that you're seeing, which will show you a summary. It also helps identify acronyms. One of the things I think for a lot of new employees, it's really hard when they join a place is acronym central, and all of a sudden, like, you don't know what these 3 letters mean. And maybe it feels even dumb to ask because you should know these things, but Viva, Viva Topics will help by actually telling you, like, this is an acronym for this other thing. Click here to learn more. So that's one thing. The second is, if you're not an organization that has invested a lot in knowledge, no better time to start than today, because this leverages the Microsoft Graph to identify topics in your organization that people are actively collaborating around or discussing, and people, so experts who are associated with those topics. And so you can help to build like a knowledge repository over time, which will be assisted through AI. We will suggest topics to you, and then you can formally adopt those topics. You can assign topic owners. You can build out your knowledge. And I think that will also help really make information more accessible, which helps with so many different things.
Yeah, especially again, we're all remote, and it's hard now to walk to the next desk and tap somebody on the shoulder. Hey, what does this mean, right? What do these acronyms stand for? Good. Okay, next question we've got here. Any plans for employee advocacy within Viva as that effort taps into LinkedIn? Is there, right now, at least in the announcement, LinkedIn integration is through LinkedIn Learning, surfacing through LinkedIn or Viva Learning, but is there any other integrations that can be possible in the future?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, that's not an area where I have a lot of depth around. So I would not be qualified to really go deep onto that subject. But I mean, I assume that we will have opportunities in the future, really near future, to have the community sort of go deeper into the learning module specifically as well.
Got it. Okay, Melissa here on LinkedIn is asking, the article says only licensed users have access to topic cards, topic pages, and topic centers. Does this mean that I need to get a topics license for every user in my org to make it useful?
I don't think it's necessary to get a license for every user in your organization for it to be useful. I think part of what companies will have to do is identify what their rollout plan is and what audiences they believe it would be useful for to get feedback and build out, evaluate the product, evaluate the capability of the product, and then decide if it's worth having for the entire organization or not. It is a product that has to be licensed for everybody who will want to use topics.
Great. Next question we have. Again, thank you for all your questions. Looks like people are very excited about this. Going into insight. So the question is, for Headspace, does that require separate licensing? Headspace specifically.
It requires you to be a Headspace user in order to offer it to your organization. But in terms of offering Headspace and any one of the employee engagement, employee well-being, companies I think will develop their own approach for what and how they want to invest in their employees. And Viva is really a way to make that information accessible easily and in a simple way that can be targeted and tailored based on employee and role.
Perfect. Next question is around Viva Learning. So looks like there's a lot of launch partners with learning between LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, and you mentioned earlier that APIs will be open for potential other learning content, especially if it's internal. Is that something that would be easily available or easily done, or does it require heavy customization or heavy programming, especially if it's internal content?
Yeah, that's a good question. Same sort of challenge with me answering is I don't have real specific detail around that, but I would just say those are all really good questions, and I would target those for if they're MVPs. We have MVP Summit coming up. We have build coming up. There's going to be good opportunities to go deeper into the specific modules and how to integrate and extend them.
And Ignite's coming up too, so I'm sure
And
there's going to
Ignite. Yeah, how could I forget? I have a talk I'm prepping for right after this.
There you go. And looks like I'm looking at the website right now. It looks like it's previews open, so partners and customers can sign up, and you can get further details from that. Awesome. Okay.
One thing I didn't mention about topics, Naomi actually just reminded me. We have a really simple way to help explain it to people, which is Wikipedia for the enterprise. If you use Wikipedia in your personal life, and I imagine many people have, that's the kind of usefulness and utility that I think we will be able to achieve with Viva Topics, but really tailored and specific for your organization, which is it's going to be different organization to organization. And so there's a ton of value in just the ease of which you can, in context, get to a authoritative internal company resource.
Fantastic. Then the next question we have is competition. So there's a lot of somewhat similar products, but not packaged like this. What are your thoughts about competition out there, and how should organizations think about investing in Viva versus what's already out there or potentially out there?
Yeah, well, I guess I would say Viva is really a platform and a set of applications. So it's really no different than many of the other things we do today already that are both platforms and applications too. Like we really do believe that to be successful, organizations will have already made decisions about a set of capabilities and products that they're using today. And we really aspire to make sure that those choices are respected and honored as they onboard with this platform. Now, we also have first-party experiences in many cases that we would also love to earn that business. So in many cases, yes, we are competing with standalone products outside of Microsoft 365. And so, it's a balance, but I think we like to think of building on our platform as a first party, which really makes the platform successful, so that other providers, and there are frankly going to be a lot of organizations and ISVs that create products that don't compete at all with what we do at Microsoft, and we want that to feel like a real integrated part of the experience, so it doesn't feel like it's built by somebody else or different. Teams, I think, is a wonderful example of just how excited companies and ISVs are about building in teams and really making their products feel like a part of it.
And the other benefit is certainly it's built on top of 365, where you take advantage of all the capabilities around compliance and security and authentication, and it's just seamless connectivity and use without much context switching. And from an IT perspective, not worrying about integrating disparate products and worrying about, well, does the data move from one place to the other? What about security? What about data sovereignty in different regions, et cetera?
Yeah, that's an extremely important consideration for most large corporations. Yeah, all those things you mentioned.
Go ahead, Martina.
One point is what I really like around that is that it's open. So Microsoft walks a balance act since years with the openness. So it open sourced a lot of things and so on. And now we have an app which is also open to be integrated, or where you can integrate your own solutions into it. And this is a huge benefit, because then you can say, okay, I do not need 10 separate apps for 20 tasks I have to do. I can integrate my app into Microsoft Viva. And this is also something which is a huge benefit also from an ISV perspective, because the heavy and tiny work is done by Microsoft, and all the maintenance around that is also done by Microsoft, and you can concentrate on the things you are really good at to bring your application into it.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, Martina, because an example that just came to mind is approvals for me. So, do you want 15 different approval workflows, or do you want a way to plug your approval workflow into a single experience for, managing those things and orchestrating them? And that's a great, simplification that drives more success, makes it easier to do, but does not sacrifice the opportunity for providers, for other things to plug into workflow, so that it's just everybody wins.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So we got another question here. Omar, you talked about being able to call Viva Connections your own thing. How about branding? Can we brand Viva as we do typically in SharePoint?
You will absolutely be able to brand the Viva Connections experience in Microsoft Teams, the same way you can brand a home site today. And if you see some of the screenshots, the screens you showed earlier had this company name, Relic Cloud, and company colors, and absolutely that experience in Teams will have your logo, and it'll have some customizations in terms of colors and typography, and that will consistently carry throughout the experience as well. And so we think that's a big part of the company voice is the brand, and SharePoint has continued to invest pretty heavily over time in increasing the abilities organizations have in tailoring that brand, inside of the experience.
Great. Let's see. Okay, so looks like we've covered most of the questions. For folks watching, again, if you have questions, we've got about 5 minutes left. Feel free to pop it in. So other than that, Martina, anything else you'd like to add in terms of integrating this with the existing use? Because today, a lot of people are already using SharePoint and Yammer and Teams. Now, it may come across as there's one more thing that's coming. So what would be your advice? I'm sure you talked to a lot of customers around taking advantage of Microsoft 365. How would you advise organizations to think about including Viva as a part of their Microsoft 365 investment?
Yeah, my advice currently is think out of the Microsoft 365 universe. Don't think about integrating existing SharePoint or Yammer communities. Think about your HR workflows you need to integrate into Microsoft Viva, and think also about the employee processes you have to cover from an HR perspective. And I think this is one of the most important topics, that you talk with your HR department, what they are planning and what tools they have. And for instance, if they need a survey tool which needs to be integrated, or if they want to provide some information for new employees or onboarding people and so on. So my advice would definitely be talk with your HR department about the use cases they have, because you can learn a lot around that.
Yeah, that's excellent advice.
So Omar, any last few words before we wrap up this session? Any advice you have for colleagues and friends watching, and how can they start using this?
Well, just want to say thanks to everybody who participated and watched and asked questions. I think this is one of the most exciting periods in time for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft and our customers. I think the next couple of months are going to be fantastic as we build the product and continue to get feedback from customers and deliver it. I'm really looking forward to just hearing about what people are going to do and how this is going to help them with their organizational goals and mission, and what we can do to help. Fundamentally, I think we are a purpose-driven, mission-driven company, and we're all about enabling our customers to do their work. And I think this vision and this product is 100% about that, exclusively. And it's very exciting for me. I think it's a big opportunity with our community, with our partners, to all go on the journey together and build better workplaces for everybody.
Absolutely. And for everyone that tuned in, like Omar said, thank you. I know this was a short notice, and that's a part of social, right? We all got together and say, hey, why don't we do this on Monday? And we'd be happy to do this again sometime. But other than that, I believe this Wednesday, Christian Buckley is doing his weekly Office 365 hours. He'll tackle this more with other MVPs, so make sure you tune into that. But again, thank you for joining us. Feel free to connect with any one of us on Twitter or on LinkedIn. We'll be more than happy to address any questions that may come up around Microsoft Viva. So with that, everyone, have a wonderful day. Make sure you wash your hands, social distance, wear your mask, take good care of yourself, and we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.